It's creature feature B-movie time, and we're talking about Monster Bug. However, this title was originally called Millennium Bug and was released in 2011. And this has a bit of an accolade, this film, because this proudly presents no CGI monsters. It's purely practical effects work here with models and puppets and things like that. So all the effects that you'll see on screen are actually real and real props they've kind of made. They do use a bit of things like visual effects like green screen, and which is, it comes across as a little bit obvious at times, but there's no CGI monsters and things like that. So if you're a fan of the practical effects, you may want to kind of check this kind of movie out. Now, the plot here focuses on a small family. It's kind of this dad, his kind of new wife, and the dad's sort of teenage daughter. And this is set on New Year's Eve 1999. And this kind of family want to kind of get away from the hustle and bustle of busy city life, so decide to go camping in the wilderness, just to try and get away from this kind of millennium hysteria that people are sort of having and think the world's going to end and things like that. They decide to kind of go camping in this kind of remote wilderness area. However, unluckily for them, this wilderness area actually is home to this kind of backwoods hillbilly family that are kind of having trouble reproducing because they've had so much incest. All their sort of spawn is becoming somewhat disfigured. Now, you may be deciding, hey, I thought this was a Monster Bug film. I'll come on to that. And you've also got this kind of cryptozoologist of doing some research out there, and basically all these kind of three groups of people end up kind of together, and there's this large creature which is basically the Millennium Bug, which is a kind of a creature that only appears once every 1,000 years. And of course wreaks terror on these kind of humans. I have to say the main bulk of this movie isn't actually about the bug. I mean, I guess that's the last act, but the bulk of the film is really dealing with these sort of backward hillbilly types, and that's, you know, that's kind of the certainly the main threat for the kind of the first half of this film. And the way they're played, they're cartoons. Unfortunately, this is the biggest rub I'm going to have with this movie, is that the characters, particularly the kind of the hillbillies and to the degree the scientists as well, are cartoon characters. When we first introduced the family, they kind of seem, you know, it's a fairly kind of normal feel to it. They feel like relatively real people, and you know, it kind of sets the tone for this kind of movie. And we sort of see an early sort of indication of the creature as the first kills you kind of do in these films, and it's somewhat spoilt by the kind of the introduction of these hillbillies that are so sort of outlandish and so kind of sort of caricaturous. I mean, they're obviously trying to get a riff of the sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe here. And there's obviously the granny one, the grandpa one, and things like that. But they're so cartoony and kind of feel out of place with the tone set in this initial sort of part of the film. And this kind of this scientist is obviously a little bit in the know about this sort of creature. And when the creature emerges, basically, it looks less like a bug, more like a kind of an alien kind of predator dogs from the movie Predators. It kind of looks a little bit like that, but on a massive scale, and it's going around sort of terrorizing these survivors. So that's pretty much the movie. There's not a lot of not plot here, to be fair, but you want to see some monster effects, not for kind of twists and tales on this tried and tested genre, aren't you? So, what's the effects like? I really dug the effects, I have to say, and it does make a difference when you have these practical effects, and you can kind of see the work that was put into it. And these are a variety of different effects, obviously, from scale sort of models to kind of green screen and kind of and sort of the smaller puppets, things like that. And I have to say, I do like the design of this sort of creature. You never really get too much of an explanation about what it actually is and where it comes from. You have to kind of just accept that it's there. But it's a pretty, it's a great monster. Like, if you like your creature films, you really won't go wrong with this film. This thing is pretty damn big. I mean, it's not quite Godzilla big, but it's pretty damn big and pretty damn terrifying as well. And of course, it shoots off some offspring, which are going to be miniature versions of it at the same time as well. The actual effects when it comes to the kind of the gore and stuff is like the kind of the hillbillies. It's almost played for a little bit spoof. When we sort of see half-eaten faces and kind of shot through heads, I'm not quite sure how seriously we're supposed to take this, because they do a good job in kind of having quite a lot of splatter here, but it kind of looks a little bit goofy sometimes, and I'm not 100% sure if that was the desired effect or whether it really is meant to have its tongue firmly in cheek. I'm probably feeling it's probably more of the latter, to be quite honest. So although there are quite a lot of gore effects and kind of, you know, people's with their heads hanging off, a lot of the time it kind of looks just a little bit kind of goofy, but like Brain Dead or Dead Live if you're from the States, that kind of, the early Peter Jackson film kind of reminds me of that sort of style of gore, if that makes sense. I thought the characters were quite likeable and actually had quite a good chemistry. The main sort of trio, I have to say. My main issue here is going to be these kind of hillbillies, because I just didn't like them. I thought they took too much emphasis away from the kind of the creature itself, and them as characters were just, I mean, if you've seen Wrong Turn, for example, that's scary, backwards, you know, hillbilly types. These guys are not scary at all. They're just kind of jokey, and that was a little bit of a missed opportunity for me, because they feature so heavily, and to be quite honest, probably have more screen time than the actual monster. It brings this film down, you know, quite considerably to what it could be. But it was a fun, enjoyable film. I am going to say this is an above average B movie. If you are a creature feature fan or a B movie fan, you are going to like this movie. I'll give this movie a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.